or Dach Yomi, Tes Vav, on the second half of the page, beginning of Parshas Chaisara. The mimer is called Igali Lon Tami. They should reveal for us the reason. This is from what we say in the Sudas Shabbos in the morning, the song that Rizal wrote. It says, No, this is during the day, Shabbos day. We say, Yigali Lantami. So I'm gonna, in the Siddur it says like this: Yigali Lantami. May he disclose to us the reason. Tivistri Nami, for the 12 loaves of bread. Dinan As Bishmei, which symbolize a letter of his name. Kafilo Kalisha, both in the Kafilo Kalisha, both in the combined and the single form. So he should reveal to us, he should disclose to us the reason for 12 loaves of bread, which symbolize a letter of his name, both in the combined and single form. So what is that supposed to mean? So we know that on Shabbos, in the Beis HaMikdash, they baked 12 loaves of bread, which was actually matzah, and they baked it before Shabbos, and they ate it the next Shabbos. They ate it a week later. And they're saying that these 12 of loaves have a special connection to Shabbos. That's why they had to be eaten specifically on Shabbos, and they had to be on the shulchan from the Shabbos before, and you had to eat them on the next Shabbos. So there's a special connection between these 12 loaves of bread and the idea of Shabbos. And the Rizal says that these 12 loaves of bread are connected to a letter from Hashem's name. Somehow these 12 loaves of bread are connected to Hashem's name, or symbolize Hashem's name, and specifically a letter from Hashem's name. And which letter? The letter which is a single form and a combined form. So what does this mean? Which letter? Which letter of Hashem's name are we referring to that are connected to these 12 loaves? It says, Hine mili hey hi behe acheres. So, what connection to Parshat Chaisar? If you skip the first 3 words, it says, in the original Torah, or it says, Parshas Chaisar inyan Sirei Machpelah. It says, the Sirei Machpelah, the double field, or the double cave, which was in the field. It says that Abraham, when he wanted to bury Sarah, so he bought this field, which had a cave and had a house on top of it. And the house had 2 stories, or the cave had 2 floors, but let's say the house had 2 stories. And so this is called the double cave because it was a cave next to a 2-story house. And so that was called the double cave. And it's also called the double cave because it had pairs. It had Adam and Chava, and Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah. So that's called the Sirei Machpelah. So in the Zohar, it says that the idea of the Maras HaMachpelah, the double, is connected to the idea of Hey, and that's what it says Ha-Machpelah, Hey Machpelah, the double Hey. That the idea of the Sirei HaMachpelah, the Maras HaMachpelah, is connected to the letter Hey of Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and somehow that's going to be connected to Shabbos, and the idea of eating on Shabbos, which that's the idea of these 12 loaves, right? What did they do with the 12 loaves of bread? You didn't burn them on the Mizbeach. The Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash, they had to eat them. That was the avodah. They did not burn any part of that bread. All the bread had to be eaten by the Kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash. They burned 2 spoons of levina, which is called frankincense in English, but doesn't help you because you probably don't know what that means as much as you know what levina is. But they burned it, the levina, on the Mizbeach. But the bread they had to eat. So what we're saying is that the Hashem's letter Hey, which could be in a single or a combined form, that's connected to the eating of the 12 loaves of bread that they ate on Shabbos, which is connected to the idea of eating in Shabbos in general. So what is this double letter of Hashem's name? In a mili Hey hi behe acheres. The letter Hey of Hashem's name, when you spell it out fully, you spell it out with 2 Heys. That Hashem's name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So each letter, there's a letter it is by itself, but when you write it out, Yud is Yud Vav Dalid, right? That's how you write Yud Vav Dalid. And Hey you could spell in three ways. One way is Hey Aleph, one is Hey Yud, and one is Hey Hey. There's three ways to spell Hey. Vav is either Vav Aleph Vav. It could be Vav Yud Vav, but for some reason it's not. Whatever. So that's how you spell out Hashem's name fully. That's called the name and the mili, the filling, meaning when you spell it out fully, what are the extra letters that you need to write it out? So the mili of Yud is Vav Dalet, right? When you write a Yud and then a Vav and a Dalet, that's the mili of the letter Yud. And the Hey, the mili of the letter Hey, could either be an Aleph, a Yud, or a Hey. So those are three ways to spell the mili of the Hey. Now in Kabbalah, the mili of the letters of Hashem's name correspond to four ideas in Atzilus: Chachma, Bina, Za, and Malchus. So Chachma corresponds to the letter Yud, to the Shem Yud Kivavki, when it's a mili Yudin, that it's Yud Vav Dalid, and then Hey Yud, and Vav, and Hey Yud, and the Bina is with a mili of Hey also, a mili of Yud. But the latter, the sphere of Malchus of Atzilus, corresponds to Hashem's name Yud Kivavke with mili of Hey, meaning you spell Yud Vav Dalid, Hey Hey, Vav Vav, and Hey Hey, which if you add it all up, it equals 52. And 52 is the gematria of Behema, which means an animal, and it's connected to the sphere of Malchus of Atzilus, because Malchus of Atzilus has to come down and create the world, and the understanding that we have in this world compared to the Atzilus is like the understanding that an animal has compared to a human being. It's a different type of understanding. But Malchus of Atzilus, it corresponds to the last letter Hey of Hashem's name Yud Kivavki, and the double part of that is Hey Hey. So Hine Mili Hey Hi Behei Acheres. When you write out the letter Hey fully, it's with another Hey. V'hi Bechinas Kefila Kinoida, and that's called double. In other words, the mili of the Hey is with another Hey. So it's, if you want to spell out the letter Hey fully, it's like there's two Heys. Kinoida Minyan Ma'aras HaMachpelah. Like we know about the idea of the double cave, which was double because there was a two-story house next to it. But in the Zohar it says that was called HaMachpelah, means Hey Machpelah, the double Hey. She Hey Achareda D'Shem Ban Chulu, which that's the last letter Hey, which that corresponds to the name of Ban. Ban is like we said, if you spell out Hashem's name Yud Kevavke with a mili of Hey, with Hey to fill up the letters, so then it's Yud Vav Dalid, Hey Hey, Vav Vav, and Hey Hey. If you add that all up, it's 52. And so the last letter Hey of that name is the idea of the double Hey. So that's what the Rizal writes, that Hashem should reveal to us the reason why there's 12 loaves of bread, which are connected to a letter of Hashem's name, which is double and single. So this is what we're trying to figure out. What does it mean that Hashem's name, the last letter Hey, has a double and a combined form? Why it has to be that there's two Heys? And how is this connected to 12 loaves of bread? And how is that connected to eating on Shabbos? So far, we don't understand any of those things. So hopefully the Maimon will explain some of those ideas. So to explain the idea of the 12 loaves of bread on Shabbos, we have to understand what's the idea of eating in general, and what's the difference between eating during the week and eating on Shabbos. What's the idea of eating? When you eat, it becomes part of your fat and blood. That when you eat the food, it becomes part of your blood, and your life depends on the blood that's renewed from the food that you eat, and the blood that's created from the food that you eat. First it's processed in the liver, and then it goes to your heart, and then it goes to your brain. So the life that you have depends on your blood, and the blood is created from the food that you eat. Vayidei ze misala Michael shenasa menu leva moya charam. Vayidei ze mischazik liboy moicha bavodas Hashem shebeliboy bislavus crush ve'esh nasa b'koyach achila shebeliv shebelechil hayim mischalish cholu. V'gam moicha nasa chazak lisboynim begudos Hashem cholu. V'zu inyan bir shemen Michael nasa adam. So through this, the food becomes elevated because now it becomes part of your mind and heart. And now, and your mind and heart, you use to serve Hashem. That with your heart, you feel love for Hashem. When you think about Hashem's kindness and Hashem's greatness by davening, so you come to feel love for Hashem, and it becomes part of your mind that you think about the greatness of Hashem, and you appreciate a little bit of Hashem's kindness and greatness, and you understand Hashem's Torah. So the food that you ate originally was inanimate objects, was plants and animals. And now it becomes part of the service of Hashem. It becomes part of love and fear of Hashem, and understanding of the Torah and the doing of the mitzvahs, and the performance of the mitzvahs. So it becomes elevated into the holiest thing possible. So that's how you're elevating the food, by eating it. That's during the weekdays, that you're elevating the food from being inanimate, lowly objects to becoming part of holiness. On Shabbos, the idea of eating is not just to refine the food and to elevate it from being unholy and into holiness, but because on Shabbos you're not supposed to separate different things. One of the 39 malachos that we just learned about, Parshas Vayakhel, this book about Shabbos, there's 39 malachos. So one of them is borer. You're not allowed to separate between a mixture of good and bad. And so on Shabbos, since you're not allowed to separate, you can't say that the idea of eating on Shabbos is to separate the good from the bad, because the whole idea of Shabbos is that you don't need to separate. Everything is already prepared, is already good. So the idea of Shabbos is to accomplish something much higher than just to separate it. Is to bring down something very, very holy into your life through keeping Shabbos and through eating on Shabbos. And all the things you do on Shabbos is not just to elevate it from unholiness, but to bring down a higher level of holiness into you. On Shabbos you can't separate from good and bad. The eating is for a higher purpose, is to draw down from above, from the higher level of holiness from Hashem into you, which is called, you should call to Shabbos pleasure, meaning that you should have pleasure in Hashem, in the revelation of Hashem in you. And this is accomplished not only through learning and davening, but even through eating on Shabbos. They're able to have a pleasure in Hashem. Then you'll have pleasure on Hashem. So in order to explain how is it possible that you're going to have pleasure in Hashem just by eating on Shabbos, you understand that you can elevate food by eating it, that from being an inanimate object becomes part of Torah mitzvahs. But how is it possible that by eating food you'll experience pleasure in Hashem? The idea is, it says a person was formed, Hashem formed the person, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. What does that mean? He's the last thing in creation, and he's the highest thing in creation. When Hashem made the world, it says in the 6 days of creation, what's the last thing Hashem made? Was man. What's the highest part of creation? Is man. So on the one hand, man is the last. He's the last thing in creation. On the other hand, he's the highest part of creation. Everything created was us for him. So we see these two aspects in the person, that he's the last and he's the first. And this is also expressed in his neshama, in his soul. That his soul, the way that it comes down here, so on the one hand, his soul is higher than all the inanimate objects, all the things in the physical world. But in the source of his soul and in the source of the physical objects, so those physical objects come from the Olam HaTayu. They come from a very high world where Hashem's light was infinite. And the soul, the closest level of the source of the soul is from Atzilus, which is called Tikkun, which we spoke about previously. At the level of Atzilus is not infinite light. The light is limited. It's only according to what you're able to receive and internalize. So all the physical objects have a higher source than the soul of the person, because they come from a place of infinite light, and your soul comes from a place of finite light. So on the one hand, your soul is higher, because in this world, you're involved in holiness, and all the physical things are not involved in holiness. But in their source, all the physical things come from a place of infinite light, and your soul comes from a place of finite light. So you're the last. So this is the idea that when you eat on Shabbos, you're able to reveal the source of those physical things in the infinite light of Hashem, and bring that into your life. And that's how you can experience a greater pleasure in Hashem, just by eating on Shabbos for the sake of eating Shabbos. Whereas during the week, that you can't so easily reveal the source of those physical things. So then, you have to do it in a different way. Then a person, the way that he's in this world, he's higher than the food, and therefore becomes elevated through him. But in its source, in the world of Taihu, so then the source of the food is higher than the person. Sorry. But we see that the source of the food is much higher than the person, because the food gives life to the person. The person receives life from the food, because in his source he's the lowest level of creation. On Shabbos, which is the time when all the worlds ascend to their source, meaning that on Shabbos you can see in everything where its original source in Hashem, where it's really coming from. So then you can see the source of the food in Hashem's infinite light. And so then when you eat the food, you're able to experience that revelation of Hashem's infinite light that it should come into you through eating the food on Shabbos. And this revelation of the source of the food into you is through these 12 loaves of bread, which are connected to Hashem's name, which symbolize Hashem's name. As well as Hashem at the end of the Maimer will explain how that works. That's what it says. It says in the Pasuk in Mishlei, a righteous person eats for the satisfaction of his soul, to satiate his soul, but the stomach of the wicked is lacking. What does that mean? There's two kinds of eating. One type of eating is in order to satiate your soul, your neshama. The second one is to make that the stomach of the wicked should be lacking. What does that mean? To satisfy your soul, to give life to your neshama. That means the life of your soul that comes from above, meaning that from the source of the food in Hashem's infinite light is coming to you to give extra life and excitement and service of Hashem in your neshama. That's called the Seiva Nafshe, to make your neshama happy, to give life to your neshama through connecting to the source of the food. What does it mean to make the stomach of the wicked lack? What is the wicked? That's the unholiness. Through eating the food, you're able to remove this holiness, the sparks of holiness which is trapped in the unholiness of those physical things, which is called Chayal Baka Vikianu, which means that the unholiness swallowed the holiness from the sparks that came down into it, and now he has to spit it back up, meaning you're able to extract those sparks of holiness from the physical things. In every food there's a physical desire, which that's connected to klipa, that's connected to unholiness. And through the fact that a person eats it and it creates blood, which is part of his life, which helps him to think and feel and serve Hashem, then it becomes included in holiness, this food. And through this process of eating it, he takes the holiness from that physical things which was trapped in the unholiness of the physical desire, and the power, the life power which is in that food becomes part of his service of Hashem, so it becomes included in holiness. That's what it means. The stomach of the wicked is missing, meaning you take away from the stomach of the wicked that holiness which is trapped in them. And from being trapped in the unholiness, it becomes part of your inheritance, part of you. Eating during the week is in order to accomplish this bira, is in order to accomplish that you should elevate that power, the holiness which is in the food, the life power which is in the food, that it should become included in holiness, to take it away from the unholiness. But the eating on Shabbos is to draw down from above, to give extra life to your soul from the source of the food. To draw down extra, great and additional life to your neshama from the source of the food is the way that it is in Matayhu. Like it says in the Zohar, that on Shabbos there's no beer. That it says, that on Yom Tif, even on Yom Tif, there's the idea of pselis, which means that in every food there's a part that you digest and becomes part of you, and there's a part of the food that's called pselis, which is the unnecessary part, the part that you don't need to live, and that comes out of the person. So that process, in the spiritual sense, happens during the week and happens even on Yom Tif, that there's a part of the food which is connected to holiness and a part of which is connected to unholiness. And when you eat it, you separate the holiness, that it becomes part of you, and unholiness becomes removed. But on Shabbos, that's not true. On Shabbos, the whole life of the food is only connected to holiness, and it comes completely absorbed in you. Like we find by the man, it says that when the Yidden in the desert, they ate the man became completely absorbed inside of them. There was no pselis, there was nothing that had to come out of them, there was nothing bad in it. Just similar to that, on Shabbos, the spiritual life of the food becomes completely absorbed in you, because it's coming from its source in Taihu, it's coming from its source in holiness and the infinite light of Hashem. And so therefore, there's nothing bad about it. Perish. That during the week, when you eat, there's the idea that you have to separate the good from the bad. Just like in the physical sense, when you digest the food, so the part of the food becomes part of you, and part of it you have to remove. And that's the idea of to rectify, to correct the food, to separate the good from the bad. So that's called milamata l'mayla, from below to above, that you're taking it and elevating that food. On Shabbos, where you're drawing down from above to below, revealing the source of the food. There's nothing negative in the source, it's only good. Where does the idea come from that to mix together with good is also bad? When you eat food, some of it you absorb, and some of it you have to remove. Why is there a mixture of good and bad? Because when Adam Harishon ate from the tree of knowledge, so he mixed together good and bad. In all the aspects in the physical world, there's this mixture of good and bad from the fact that Adam Harishon ate from the tree of knowledge when he wasn't supposed to. And every person in his soul and in his life, there's this mixture of good and bad. In each person, the mixture of good and bad is different, and therefore, the way that he separates the good and the bad is different in each person. But on Shabbos, when you experience pleasure in Hashem from above to below, that's higher than the Eitz Hadas, it's higher than this mixture of good and bad. And therefore, you don't need to elevate it and correct it. Rather, the source of the food is becoming into you to give you additional life. So this is the idea, the difference between eating on Shabbos and eating the weekdays. So let's continue tomorrow explaining how that works on Yom Tif and how that's connected to Hashem's name.